At the start of the film, we see a man named Toronto talking with his subordinates. He is the leader of a group of paid poachers who plan to capture animals living in a wildlife reserve. One of the team members, Jezzel, goes in first to unlock the gate for the others. After she succeeds, the entire group enters and encounters a noisy group of meerkats. Fearing that the rangers might hear them, they use tranquilizer darts on the meerkats. One of these meerkats collapses, and suddenly it transforms into a zombie-like state. However, the poachers do not notice this change, and they split up into two teams. Giselle and Lane go to catch a baby porcupine, while Toronto and the rest head off to find an elephant. Once Toronto's group arrives at the elephant enclosure, one of them named Farrell remains outside on guard, while Toronto and the others go in to approach the elephant. Meanwhile, Giselle and Lane reach the porcupine enclosure. Giselle tries to catch a baby porcupine while Lane records it with her camera. Inside the elephant enclosure, just as Toronto's team prepares to shoot the elephant with a tranquilizer, Al and Rod suddenly hear something moving closer. In a flash, they are attacked by a swarm of zombie meerkats, and both Al and Rod are killed. Horrified, Toronto shouts for Farrell to hurry inside the enclosure. When Farrell arrives, it becomes clear he's also wounded on his arm, having been assaulted by the same group of meerkats. Back at the porcupine enclosure, Giselle manages to capture the baby porcupine, but the mother porcupine appears moments later. Giselle promptly fires a tranquilizer dart at the mother porcupine. Right then, a ranger named Randy Hawk and his team arrive, catching the poachers in the act and bringing both poachers and the drugged porcupines back to their base. Dawn breaks, revealing the sweeping savanna of the wildlife reserve, a place where various animals gather for observation before release back into the wild or transfer to a zoo. At the base, we see a woman named Brooke, who is preparing to release a baby hippo named Rosie. Soon Logan, a veterinarian, enters and says that Randy has called. Over the phone, Randy explains he has captured a group of poachers and is escorting them to the base, along with the animals that were tranquilized. Angered by what the poachers have done, Brooke makes it clear she won't be responsible for her reaction if she meets them face to face. Elsewhere in the reserve, Toronto and Farrell are still trying to find a way out. Suddenly, a rhino charges at Farrell and gores him, killing him on the spot. Panicking, Toronto runs toward the base, hoping someone can help him. Before long, Randy and the captured poachers arrive at the base, and the poachers are locked in a room. Logan and Brooke take the tranquilized porcupines to the lab. Just then, Toronto bursts in, frantically begging for assistance and describing the terrifying situation outside. However, no one believes him at first. They think he might be hallucinating from smoking too much cannabis. In the end, they agree to accompany Toronto so he can prove his story. During the trip, Toronto repeatedly insists that they turn back, but Mike and a few others mock him, joking that he's afraid of mere meerkats. Eventually, they reach the meerkat enclosure, where Randy and Isaiah step out of the vehicle. They discover human body parts scattered everywhere. Randy approaches one of the more intact corpses, and a mutated meerkat suddenly crawls out of the body, forcing him to react on instinct to kill it. Then Isaiah hears the sound of animals approaching, and all at once, in the lab, Brooke obtains a blood sample from the mother porcupine. Under the microscope, she realizes the tranquilizer compound is dangerously toxic, capable of causing lethal infections. Outraged, she confronts Jezzel, and they argue. At that moment, Randy calls in to find out where Jezzel is being held and to confirm the authenticity of Toronto's warnings, particularly after news arrives that Isaiah has died. Brooke then remembers that Ketty and Ford have gone out to release baby Rosie. Randy tries calling them, but no one picks up, so a group heads out to check on their safety. Meanwhile, Logan remains in the lab, planning to sedate the mother and baby porcupines again and quarantine them. Upon inspection, Logan sees the enclosure is severely damaged, and both porcupines are missing. He finds them in a corner of the lab, but before he can administer the tranquilizer, they attack him. Hearing the commotion, Brooke runs in and sees Logan impaled by porcupine quills. He dies from his injuries, and the porcupines escape the lab. Brooke manages to neutralize the mother porcupine, but the baby porcupine leaps at Lane's face. Brooke, injured herself, tries to help Lane, but Lane's injuries are too severe and she doesn't survive. Meanwhile, Ketty and Ford have just finished releasing Rosie the baby hippo when a stampede of rhinos races toward them. Randy and his team arrive just in time to attempt a rescue. As everyone rushes to drive away, Ford slips and is trampled to death by the rhinos. The rhinos continue their pursuit, prompting Mike to fire at them, but it has little effect. Toronto demands that his handcuffs be unlocked so he can shoot at the rhinos himself. However, their path leads to a steep drop-off, and the vehicle loses control. The scene transitions back to the base, where Brooke is struggling to remove porcupine quills lodged in her body. She attempts to contact the others, but there is no response. Giselle offers to help clean her wounds and claims to be working on an antidote to the toxin. Brooke fears the poison could infect her, but Giselle explains that the toxin is only lethal to animals, not to humans. Elsewhere, the crash involving Randy's group has left Mike dead. Randy, who was knocked unconscious, finally comes to when Toronto revives him. Toronto also confirms that the radio is completely destroyed so they can't call the base. Randy asks Ketty which route will get them back the quickest. Ketty advises the fastest way is through a deep canyon with muddy terrain and dense insect life. They proceed until they reach a grassy plain. There they find countless animal bones, prompting them to alter their course rather than risk becoming prey for any lurking predators. Back at the base, Brooke manages to contact emergency services, learning that the first wave of help will arrive in about 3 hours, although a full rescue team is still being formed. The reserve's remote location slows everything down. Frustrated, Brooke hangs up. In the lab, Giselle works on an antidote while chatting about her elite medical background. She says she can craft the antidote using human blood. It is also revealed that Brooke is pregnant. At last, the antidote is ready. As they prepare to test it on the baby porcupine, it breaks free from its cage and runs off. Brooke and Giselle, both frightened, start urging each other to catch it. Meanwhile, Randy, Toronto, and Ketty reach a river. While they consider how to cross, a large snake appears behind Toronto. Randy quickly kills it with a blade. He remembers there are kayaks stored somewhere along the riverbank, and they decide to paddle across. During the crossing, they talk among themselves, with Toronto gazing at the scenery and beginning to understand why Randy and his team care so deeply about preserving this wildlife reserve. At the same time, a hippo keeps its eyes on them from a distance. Back at the base, Giselle and Brooke search for another infected animal on which to use the antidote, since the baby porcupine ran off, leaving them no test subject. They encounter a crocodile that turns out to be infected. Giselle attempts to administer the antidote but slips, causing her shot to miss. The crocodile attacks Brooke, who fortunately has a backup syringe. She manages to stab the crocodile with the antidote, and it reverts to normal. Buoyed by their success, they hurry back to the base to produce more antidote. On the river, as Randy, Toronto, and Ketty paddle, Ketty starts to tire. Suddenly, the calm is shattered when a startled hippo charges at them. Randy and Toronto manage to push the hippo away, but they fall overboard in the process. Swimming to the shore, they find the hippo ready to attack. At the last second, Giselle appears and fires an antidote dart. Relieved, Randy and Brooke, who has just arrived, embrace, glad that they are both still alive. Toronto tries to hug Giselle as well, but she rebuffs him. Before Brooke can inform Randy about her pregnancy, the now recovered hippo strikes again, forcing them to flee back to the base. Once inside, they barricade the doors with furniture and other items. In the midst of a brief respite, Randy learns that Brooke is pregnant, and they share a fleeting moment of happiness. It's cut short when they notice something moving in the sewer pipes beneath the building. Randy goes to check the bathroom and is suddenly ambushed by a crocodile. He fires his gun, but the rounds don't penetrate its thick hide, so everyone scrambles to escape. While hiding, Giselle realizes the only way for the antidote to work effectively is if an infected animal bites a human who already carries the antidote in their bloodstream, thus keeping the serum pure and uncontaminated. She runs back to the lab but is tackled by the crocodile before she can do anything else. Randy and Toronto try to help, killing the crocodile, but Giselle is fatally wounded. Grief-stricken, Toronto cradles her body, and Brooke takes a blood sample from Giselle so she can keep producing the antidote. Suddenly, they hear a helicopter overhead. Initial reinforcements have arrived. The pilot lands and urges them to board quickly, but he is immediately attacked and killed by a zombified lion. Meanwhile, more infected animals surround the base, and the survivors retreat inside to devise a plan. Randy attempts another call for help, but the phone lines are down. Brooke returns to the lab holding the newly made antidote, telling Randy that the animals have broken in. Randy and Brooke start arguing because he wants to inject the antidote into himself, effectively sacrificing his safety. Toronto, however, grabs the serum without warning and injects it into his own body. Just then, an infected meerkat bursts into the room, biting Toronto. The moment it bites him, the meerkat reverts to normal and scampers off. Determined to save the others, Toronto volunteers himself. They spray him with a powerful scent that will attract the infected creatures, and he rides off on a motorcycle. The animals, lured by the smell, swarm after him, leaving Randy and Brooke free to board the helicopter and fly away. From above, they watch as the antidote begins taking effect, gradually restoring the infected animals to normal. But to their shock, 2 meerkats have snuck onto the helicopter and attack them in midair. After a fierce struggle, they manage to defeat the creatures. The scene then shifts back to the base where order has been restored. Brooke is shown on a call with Ellen Rogers, thanking her for agreeing to receive the recovered animals at Eden Wildlife Zoo. She cautions him to watch for any unusual behavior in the animals just in case. Dr. Ellen reassures Brooke that the staff at Eden is well prepared and that she need not worry. She then ends the call, explaining that she must prepare for an upcoming intern orientation. In the final shot, we see Ellen pick up another phone, calling someone named Monty. She asks for an update on the monkey's condition, and with that, the film comes to a close. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, because by subscribing you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.